Chile has been presented in many occasions like a sort of model of development, especially for the financial institutions like the World Bank and the monetary funds and other institutions. And probably one of the reasons is because you can see here in the illustration, no? The GDP of the country, especially from year 2000, no, has increased 4 times. No? And you see that most of this increase in the GDP is related with mining, and especially with copper mine, which is supporting 40% of the world demand. We export 40% of the world demand of copper. No? And of course, all the business relating with copper mining are in some way explaining this extraordinary economic growth of this country. No? And of course, we can say that we are going to be developed very soon, probably. But of course, in the political ecology term, this is true. No, this is the question that we have always to think about. No? And of course, there are other terms in this analysis which should be also taken into consideration. No? Yes. For instance, what about the people who live in the area where the mines are located? For instance, Doña Demetria, she lives there. And she lives in the house is behind her, you can see. Very precarious stone house there. So is she participating of this economic development in reality? Is she receiving some benefit of this economic development? And at the same time, you know, this is her calendar. No? She is indigenous and people living in the mountains, and she has a vision of the mountain, of the landscape, in a way, integrated way, and all the ecological birds are tied. No? And in the other figure you can see the watch. No? What about the culture? What about why this lady and her people should disappear as a consequence of our economic development? No? This is the question. No? Who is going to make the decisions? No? And what about the landscape? No? This is the landscape where the mines are getting the water. It's a lot of water to produce mine. Copper, gold, silver, lithium, molybdenum. And from where the water is coming? Yes, of course, from the wetlands located in the uppermost part of the Andes. They should disappear. Because the economic reasons that I showed in the first illustration. This is the distribution, the present distribution of mine investment in the north of Chile. No? Each of these number is an investment for mining purposes. Everybody's here. British, Australian, Japanese, all the countries, all the so-called developed countries are here getting our mining resources. Not for us. Should be very clear. And so, you see, these colors are the contour lines. Of course, so everything, all the landscape is committed to this tremendous effort of economical production. And this is the distribution of our export to explain the economical growth. No, you have covered 24% of the exportation. No? And what about the other products? Fruits, food, salmon, forestry, wine, cool milk, all primary production. Is it possible to have a sustainable development only exporting primary materials? And of course, you can imagine that we, every day, together with the weather forecast, we talk about the price of copper in the international markets. No? Of course, you see, no, that we have had during the last time, for instance, year 2010, $4.42 the pound of copper in the international market because the Chinese demand. What about the future? Is anybody at home who can say something about the future? Yesterday, the Mercosur at home was that the copper price was going to 3.20. It's going to be the price in the future. What are the degrees of freedom we have to think in this future? If we depend completely from external markets. And of course, you can see which is the meaning of the figure. They said the investment, the mining investment in the year 2020 is increasing 56%, and the total amount will be $104 billion. And of course, in the map of the country, the number one region is going to receive, look, $13,000 million, and the second region, 38. But what about the rest of the country? I mean, what is the impact on the regional and even development when you have this big amount of money in one part of the country and not in the rest? What is the impact on the geographical inequalities? Yeah, and this is another journal information. They said, look, we have in the northern part of the country where the mines are located, we have a GDP equivalent to United Kingdom. Very good. But if you go to the south, for instance, this area here, when the Mapuche people is living, I mean the Indian people mainly is living, they have the GDP of Ecuador. So the impact of mining in regional development, disequilibrium, is very big. Who is going to control this situation? Who is going to improve this condition? But however, something which is very confusing is that tomorrow, the student of my country, the university student, and the secondary school students are going again to the street tomorrow. How many? 120,000 students are going to the street tomorrow to complain. How is it possible to complain against these people? The people should be very happy. Why not? Yes, of course, one reason could be because it depends where you live in the country. But look, these very interesting figures, everything is taken from the newspaper. We don't have political ecological science at home. No, so we are just mainly using the newspaper information. But look this information in the upper part. They have the social distribution of the income in the last 10 years. In the left side, you have group ABC1, the richest people. You can see that it has reduced from 5.9 to 5.4. But look, also the social situation is almost the same. Of course, the question is who is getting the benefit. But however, if you go to group G, the poorest people, we can say that it's the only group who has really increased. So it's a big contradiction between the economic growth and the social distribution of the benefits. In fact, the only group who has already getting the benefit are the richest people in the country. So what about the social reform and the social political system? But this is also very interesting. This is, again, the social groups ABC1, the richest one, and E, the poorest people, and this is the distribution of the people going to the public and private school. If you go to the richest people here, you see that 65% of the richest people is going to the private school, private paid school, and only 3% is going to the public school. And if you go to the poorest people, it's completely inverse. 70% of the people is going to the public school, and only 2% is going to the private school. These are the factors, the social distribution of the benefits. And the role of public education, which are the people are against. They don't like the system. No, we are full of people indignados because they don't accept the situation. But not now. Since the last 3 years, every week the students are going to the school to say, we need a public good and excellent education for the poor people. We were not able to solve this problem, it is possible in reality to talk about developed countries. So, why the World Bank is not discussing these topics? And this is also very interesting, no? You have in the upper part the participation of the mining in the financial system of the state, and in the tax system, and the royalty system. And you see in the yellow lower part of the columns, the real participation of mining in the money to the development of the country. Huh? Very small. Very small. It means that the principal attraction for flow of capital are exactly very lower taxes, not environmental regulation, and any responsibility in terms of social distribution of the wealth. So it's a big complication. And it's also taken from the newspaper, because in the central figure they said, look, the people who works for the mining are the most favorable people. They earn their salaries at least twice the salary of the average of the people working, for instance, in the capital city. The mining is quite positive for the market force. And also, look, it is very interesting because it was just published in the newspaper to say, look, our people is now consuming a lot of different products. For instance, beauty products here, no? You see, look how the mining, the money coming from the mining is producing this increment in our consumer of milk. So it's very interesting to observe how the media, who belongs, of course, to the powerful sector of the society, is trying to translate this investment in social benefit in some way. No? But of course, they are not taking into consideration healthcare, education, public education, or as you have seen, regional and geographical equity. And of course, there is a big concern about the future in terms of royalties and taxes. Because you see, there is an important decreasement. The first mine there was Pelambre, which is a national one, 64, minus 64, inclusive the tax system or the payment to the state. Why? Why all the companies, national and international companies, are paying less and less money? Well, they said the costs are high enough. There is enough. Energy, water, and labor. We are not getting enough money. So we cannot pay more taxes. And on the other hand, they are using some mechanism which was also created to attract mines, talking that if you reinvest the money, you are not going to pay taxes. And of course, all the companies said they are reinvesting the money in new mines, explorations, or new ores. So what is going to be the future for us? Especially with the price going down. And which is cash cost to produce copper today, also from the newspaper. And you see Chile is there. $1.72. Now yes, it's located just in the middle. The costs are, in reality, the costs are going up for the same reasons I have already mentioned. But anyway, there is a big difference between different mines, according to technology, according to the owner, according to the rentability they consider good rentability. It's very difficult to say something about this. But this is quite interesting. Which is the amount of money from the mining company which is invested in the local municipalities where the ore is located? For instance, in Antofagasta, the capital city, where all the concentration of mine is located. In reality, in dollars, this amount of money is $3 million. companies which are getting $20 billion are paying $3 million like taxes to the local municipality. Which kind of benefit are receiving the local people? But even it's worse in such small municipality like this one, Camiña and Liberal Lagos, they are getting $50,000 per year to receive the investment. And this is because this situation, the government said we have to pay something to the municipalities along the mining region. And this is the average of money that the government is paying per people who live in the mineral region. 5,000 pesos, $10. The government is paying like a compensation, no, to the people who works in the mining regions $10 per year. Who can accept it? No? And of course you can easily understand why the indignados, the people is going to the street, because they don't like this situation. And this is a mine. This is the open pit mine, the largest pit mine in the world, Escondida. Look at the landscape. This is Atacama Desert. It never rains. And you have here one of the most important paradox, geographical paradox. You have the most important concentration of mine in the most arid desert in the world. And you can imagine the situation of the water. From where is it going to get the water to produce mine? Of course, from the mountains. It's very clear. From the Andes, it's very clear. Because it never rains. No, this is Iquique and the coastal city. It never rains. You can see 0 rainfall. And the rain began at near 3,000 meters. And of course, it's to the uppermost part of the mountains. You have here near 4,000 meters. You have near 350 millimeters. So you can imagine the strategic position of the mountain for the mining development. And of course, it would be very interesting from the geographical point of view what is happening there in the mountain. Yes, in green, well, you can see the mountains in the right side. In green, national parks. Yes, of course. When we didn't have any interest in mine and on the mountains, we put there what? National parks. And who else? Indian communities. No, the square mean are Indian communities. So we put everything that is not useful for development on the mountain. But what now? When you need all the water coming from the mountains. So what are you going to do with the Indian people, and what are you going to do with the conservancy areas? Now, this is the big dilemma for us. And look, these yellow circles around, everywhere you can see, are wells. Yes, it never rains. There is no surface water. From where can you get the water? From the ground. You need the wells. And you can see that around the national parks of the India's land on the island, look the accumulation of wells. Look, for instance here, because this is the desert, you have water there, then you have some unwelling of water in several parts and also there. These are the geographical, most strategic parts of the desert, where the water is swirling. No? But look the amount of wealth. I can tell something. We are extracting 4 times, between 4 and 2 times the water. Very sharp water. And most of the water is fossil water. It was created and adopted with paleoclimatic system 10,000 years ago. It's going to be repeated in a way. So water exactly is not a renewable resource here. It's a fossil resource. It has a tremendous strategic value. And what is the cost of this lake, for instance, which is still, because it was declared recently national park, is still in some way protected. But you cannot know how many wells are located in the slopes around. It's very difficult to know. Knowledge, scientific knowledge, is very scarce. What about the people who live water, down water? For instance, this small settlement, or these crabs, the Indian system. And this also was published by the newspaper 1 year ago. They said, well, listen, the solution should be to reduce the national park. For instance, this national park could be reduced in 40,000 hectares. Why do you need a lot of land to protect? We need the land and the water, especially for development. And development related with mine. And not this red area there is the area where they are planning to install the wells to get, of course, the water for the new mining projects which are planned to be installed here. And this is quite interesting point. If water is so scarce and so important resources, and even it's fossil, how we can administrate these resources? With the market. We should go to the market. And what is the best solution to privatize water? Water should be in the market, in the free market, and you have to pay for water. No? And then you see the result. No, between this river, look the value of water in dollars per liter per second. Look, 2004 in the Copiapó Valley, and today, 2011. How many times has it the cost of water? This is speculation, of course. Speculation is one of the most important aspects in our political ecology. Water political ecology. And remember that Chile is the only country where you can have completely privatized water. And what are the results on the landscape? Look, this is a community. No? In 1989, it was full of crops and vegetation. Look now, nothing is there. Just water has been sold to company. And what about the people after, if they sell the water? They have to migrate, of course. This is very interesting. This is a community which I am going to talk a little bit more about this community. Lirima and Cancosa. It was the geographical space distribution 10 years ago. You see these arrows are the livestock circuits, the transhuman circuit to go to the ecological base in the mountains. No, there is complete organization, you need a lot of people, you need a lot of people. And such a capital, discipline, reciprocity, the commons, to maintain the system. And what about after the sale of the water? This one. It is the situation today. Nothing. The people have already left. And the livestock have been completely abandoned. Probably they are the last home you can see, you are going to see in this part of the country. And probably this is the beginning of a big salinization process in most of the lagoons. Because they are not receiving the water from the slopes. The water is being extracted by the wells. So again, I'd like to show you a small example of the situation, selecting that small lagoon which is there, the smallest one, which is called Laguna de Huantija. This is Laguna de Huantija, in one rainy year. And that is Laguna de Huantija, the same lagoon, during the drought year. Please look the small blue point in the uppermost part. This is the water body. The question is, how much water can you extract from this lagoon to ensure the ecological system and the cultural system? Yes, you know the answer. Nothing. You depend completely from the national system. No way. And this is a very interesting conflict. It started exactly in 1981, when the dictatorship, Pinochet dictatorship, had created the water code. He put the water in the market. And immediately, Canadian companies, for instance, Japanese company came to the area, they said we need to get water, 300 liters per second. And they went to the community and they offered the money to the community to buy water rights. And it's quite interesting because they didn't accept. They said, no way, we develop the water. Okay, then the company, the next year they said, we would like to be the sponsorship of the community. We would like to be the godfather of the community. We would like to protect the people, to offer scholarships for the students. We want to protect the ecosystem, but you need to sell out the water. Now, and finally, near year 2002, they got the water. But 3 years later, the people realized that the groundwater level was lowering and lowering. So they are not going to have any pasture in the wetlands. And of course they denounced the fact. And they began a big discussion, going to the justice. And finally, it's very interesting, in 2008, they got 30-year extra legal cooperation agreement. What is this? Why the anthropologists and sociologists didn't say anything about this agreement? Because it's money. Because it means $20 million for the local community. If they reject the judicial system to get compensation, real compensation in the legal system, they can accept it and particular private agreement. So the question is for you, is this community, what do you think about this community? This is a good solution. Because for the private company, for the government, and even for many social science, it was a very good business.
How much money?
$20,000, $20 million. And what about the people? The people live today in the city. They are small traders. No? They have a small shop in the city. In the city, very near the Iquique, which is called Hospicio. Okay? 3 minutes. Okay. Then let's move to the other, of course, very interesting discussion. Today, I was reading yesterday in the internet, Pascualama. What about Pascualama? The largest gold mine investment in the world. No? When the government stopped Pascualama 1 month ago, no? 35 million people was visiting Yahoo to know something about it. 30 million people were looking BBC for Pascualama. No, Pascualama is fascinating. Not only because it's located between Chile and Argentina, which is also a very interesting point because we have a first border project. You have to pass from one side to the other several times in the day. What about the frontiers? What about the social, the political administration of the landscape? But mainly, what about the people? No? They are the real people fighting for 10 years at least against Pascualama. No? We know perfectly each of them and we know perfectly their stories. We are geographically working in the field, I should say. No? These are the rivers, these are the crops, they are the settlements where they are defending. This is the church, which has, of course, in some way, neither the defense of the water. And these are the negotiations. You can see the geopolitical system 10 years ago, when mainly the Canadian company tried to influence the regional and national government to build the infrastructure to access the mine. No? There is a big complication in the system to become the world issue, world scale issue. No? But again, this is the discharge of water in the river Huasco, which needs to fit the master. It is possible to estimate the discharge and the water availability with this tremendous variation. Then again, this is the result, the cost of water. You see now the cost of water is going up because Pascualama and other mining are competing for the water. And this is transference of water, mainly from farmers. The great losers are farmers, small and medium-scale farmers. And finally, I would like to say something about the actors behind Pascualama. This is the government. The government frees Pascualama mining project, probably you know. They have stopped everything, and they are forcing some sort of money to be paid because of the environmental damage. And this is the opinion of the community, of the representative of the community. They said, look, they said, penalty millionaire and paralyzation transients, one judgment politically proper, mediatically efficient, and socio-environmental criminal. And of course, which is the idea of the government? They said they have done very good. Very good. Finally, they have made a decision. They are obliged the company to pay a lot of money. How many? How much? $16 billion. For a project which costs near $5,000 million. But probably the most interesting point, no, I am just going to start, this is one. No? This is a photography taken in Toronto. No? In the left-hand side is the president of Pascualama, Barricol. And in the right-hand side is the Chilean president. They are discussing Pascualama. Look at this, at the highest political level. And what about the student? Because there is a funny declaration where the president of the company said, we are very happy to receive the fine. We understand completely the Chilean government and we are going to pay. And they pay in advance. Because if they pay in advance, they can save 5% of their fine. They save $5 million. Only to pay in advance. And when the student said, don't worry, professor. All this declaration is related with the glasses. They have done a lot of wine. Chilean wine. So that's the reason because they have done this declaration. So they are very happy with the situation. How would you like to say this? And finally, this just was taken yesterday or before yesterday. Now this is photographies taken by the organization. This is the situation of the installation today. They have already spent near $5,000 million and probably they have to abandon this one and this one. Why they have taken this photography? Because the court of appeal need demonstration and we don't have scientific information. And it was just yesterday the Forbes report said Barrio Pascualama should be shut. And the Supreme Court in my country said that probably they are also to decide, Minister Ulloa, to decide that they can be stopped. Do you think that's the good solution to abandon this mine? The installation, they have already spent $5 billion. On the other hand, do you see that the students who are fighting on the street tomorrow, and they are saying the state should take again the mines, like the only way to get the benefit for the society? This is possible to say that it's a good opportunity for political ecology to say yes, we have to pay again the money for the public sector. Not because of ideological reason, not only Because the evidence that you have observed, they are the evidence. We are not going to be developed with this